It's strange how your whole world can collapse in a single sentence. That morning, I wasn't ready to lose my daughter. Not like this. The sunlight slipped gently through the curtains, painting soft gold on the kitchen floor. I had just poured my first cup of coffee when my phone buzzed. Her name, Hannah, love, blinked across the screen, and my heart did that familiar little dance it always did when she reached out. I smiled until I read the message. "We got married yesterday, Mom." The mug slipped from my hand before I even realized it. Coffee splashed, glass shattered, and somewhere between the sound of breaking porcelain and my heartbeat, I felt something inside me fracture too. I stared at those 6 words again, as if reading them slower would somehow change their meaning. No invitation, no ceremony, no "I wish you were here," just yesterday. The morning light felt cruel now, too bright for a heart that had just dimmed. I pressed my palm to my chest and whispered to the empty kitchen, "She got married yesterday, and I wasn't even part of her story." My name is Margaret Lewis, and I live in California, in a quiet little house tucked between orange trees and the ocean breeze. It's warm here most days, but lately, even the sunshine feels cold. Maybe because the person who used to bring light into my life stopped calling. Before I tell you everything, please, if you're listening, like this story, subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Are you a mother? A daughter? Because this story isn't just mine, it could be any mother's heartbreak. I raised my daughter Hannah Lewis in this very house. Her laughter once filled these rooms. Every wall still remembers it. I can still picture her little shoes by the door, her school drawings pinned to the fridge, her favorite pink blanket that I could never throw away. When she was born, I made her a promise that no matter how old she grew, she would always have a home to come back to. But life has a cruel way of testing promises like that. A few years ago, she met Ethan Carter, a charming young man from Seattle. He was polite, funny, ambitious, and at first, I was grateful. Grateful that someone loved my little girl as much as I did. I remember their first dinner at my house. Ethan called me Mrs. Lewis with that warm, respectful tone. He helped clear the table, even complimented my cooking. But his eyes, they never stayed still. Always calculating, always elsewhere. After that, things started changing. Hannah's calls grew shorter. "Mom, I'm busy, I'll call you later." But later kept getting farther away. She stopped visiting on weekends. Her laughter over the phone turned thinner, quieter, like she was speaking from someone else's house. And when she did talk, it was always about Ethan's family, his mother, his traditions, his plans. One night, she said gently, "Mom, Ethan's mom has such a beautiful vision for our wedding. She wants everything perfect." I smiled, pretending I didn't hear what was hidden in her words, that my vision didn't matter anymore. I still tried. I sent her wedding ideas, offered my old lace veil from my own wedding, even my old pearl earrings, family heirlooms. She thanked me, but I never saw her wear them. Still, I told myself, this is what mothers do. We love, even when we are no longer needed. We wait, even when no one's coming home. Then came that morning, the message. "We got married yesterday, Mom." 6 words, so simple, so final. I stared at my phone as if time had stopped. No invitation, no warning, not even a photo. I whispered to the empty kitchen. She got married, and I wasn't even part of her story anymore? That's when I realized Sometimes love isn't about holding on. Sometimes it's about learning how to exist in the silence after. They say distance doesn't happen overnight, but I remember the exact moment ours began. It was the evening Hannah introduced Ethan Carter to me. The sun had just dipped behind the Pacific, and the California sky was the color of rose gold. I had made her favorite dinner, roasted chicken with lemon thyme, garlic potatoes, and that chocolate pie she used to sneak bites of before dinner as a little girl. When they walked through the door, I swear I felt a shift, like something invisible had entered the house with them. Ethan smiled that perfect, polite smile and said, "Mrs. Lewis, thank you for having me. Hannah told me your cooking is legendary." His words were smooth, almost too polished. I laughed, but my chest felt tight. Throughout dinner, I watched how Hannah looked at him. Her eyes sparkled the way mine once did for her father, a kind of innocent worship that only young love knows. I wanted to be happy for her. I truly did. But as they whispered and laughed, I realized I wasn't part of the conversation anymore, just an audience to their new world. After dessert, Hannah said, "Mom, Ethan's family invited us to spend Thanksgiving in Seattle this year. Isn't that sweet?" Sweet. That's what she called the first Thanksgiving I'd spent alone in 26 years. I smiled through it, hiding the sting behind another sip of coffee. When she hugged me goodbye that night, I held her tighter than usual, because deep down, I knew something was slipping away. Weeks passed. Her calls became shorter, her visits less frequent. Every time the phone rang, I hoped it was her. And most times, it wasn't. When she did call, it was always about them. Ethan's job promotion, Ethan's new apartment, Ethan's mother wants this, Ethan's father said that. I listened, even when every word felt like a reminder that my name was disappearing from her life. I remember one afternoon when I called her just to ask how she was. She picked up, her voice rushed. "Mom, I can't talk now. We're choosing wedding colors with Ethan's mom. I'll call you later." But later never came. I sat on the porch that evening, the ocean wind brushing against my face, holding my phone like a lifeline that no longer reached her. I told myself she was just busy, that all daughters grow up and grow apart. But when she stopped sending me photos, when her laughter vanished from our Sunday calls, I realized she wasn't busy. She was building a new life, and I wasn't in it. The girl who once ran to me for every heartbreak, every scraped knee, every bad grade, now had someone else to call first. That's how distance begins, not in one moment, but in 1,000 tiny silences. And before you know it, you're no longer her home. You're just her history. The holidays used to be my favorite time of year. The smell of cinnamon candles, the soft hum of carols playing from the old radio, Hannah helping me decorate the Christmas tree. Those were the sounds of home. But the year after her engagement, the house fell quiet. It started with Thanksgiving. Every year, Hannah would come home early to help me baste the turkey, teasing me for over-seasoning everything like a grandma. That November, I waited all morning, apron on, the table already set for 2. When the clock struck noon, my phone buzzed. "Mom, we're spending Thanksgiving with Ethan's parents this year. His mom wants to do something special." I stared at the message. Something special. As if our traditions, the recipes I learned from my own mother, were suddenly ordinary. I sent back a heart emoji, pretending it didn't hurt, but it did. That night, I ate alone. The turkey tasted like paper, and for the first time, I didn't light the candle on the dinner table. Then came Christmas. I called her 2 weeks early, asking when she'd come home. Her voice sounded soft, distracted. "Oh, Mom, we'll see. Ethan's family is hosting something again. You understand, right?" I said I did. I always said I did. But when I hung up, the silence felt like ice, sharp, endless, unforgiving. On Christmas Eve, I wrapped a small gift for her anyway, a silver locket with her baby photo inside. I left it under the tree, but no one came to open it. I sat by the window that night watching snow fall over the quiet street. Every passing car made me hope she'd surprise me, knock on the door and say, "Mom, I couldn't stay away." But no headlights stopped, no knock came. New Year's was worse. At midnight, I toasted alone to a daughter who had stopped calling. Her laughter used to fill the house when fireworks burst outside. Now, there was only the crackle of my fireplace and the echo of what used to be. The distance didn't shout, it whispered. A missed call here, a late reply there. Little by little, she erased me from my daily life like pencil marks from a page. I would see her photos online sometimes, smiling with Ethan's family, holding sparklers, celebrating birthdays. I would zoom in on her face, searching for the little girl who once clung to my hand in crowded places. But she was gone, replaced by a woman I no longer recognized. Every holiday after that felt smaller, quieter, emptier. And somewhere between those silent dinners and unanswered calls, I realized something heartbreaking. The distance wasn't temporary. It was the new normal. That's when it hit me. You don't lose your children in one big goodbye. You lose them slowly, one celebration at a time. The morning it happened felt like any other. The sun slipped gently through my lace curtains, and the waves outside whispered against the shore. I had been up early, watering the garden, humming to myself, the way I always did to fill the silence. I made my coffee, added 2 spoons of sugar, like Hannah used to do when she was little, and sat by the kitchen window. The world looked calm, untouched. I didn't know that in the next few seconds, my world would shift forever. My phone buzzed once, a quiet vibration that felt oddly heavy. I glanced down. Hannah. Yellow. For a moment, warmth bloomed in my chest. Maybe she missed me. Maybe after all this distance, she just wanted to say hello. I smiled and unlocked the screen. Then I saw it. "We got married yesterday, Mom." That was all. No hearts, no emojis, no "I wish you were here." Just 6 words. Cold. Final. Like a closed door echoing down an empty hallway. I stared at the message, waiting for it to change. Waiting for another text to follow. Maybe, "I'm sorry, it was last minute," or "Don't be upset, we'll celebrate together." But nothing came. The silence between those words screamed louder than any explanation could. My breath caught in my throat. My fingers shook so badly the phone slipped from my hand and hit the floor with a dull sound. The coffee spilled across the counter, dripping slowly, like it too understood heartbreak. The sound of the ocean outside, once peaceful, now felt cruel, mocking. I pressed a hand to my chest, trying to steady the ache. Was I really so easy to erase? I walked to the living room, my legs trembling, and sat down on the couch. The house felt unfamiliar, as though the walls had moved slightly farther away. My eyes landed on the framed photo of Hannah at 16, graduation day. Her arms were around me, both of us laughing, faces pressed together. Back then, she'd whispered, "Mom, I'll never leave you." I touched the glass now. my fingertips trembling over her smiling face. Never is such a fragile word. The phone buzzed again, but it wasn't her, just a promotional message. I almost laughed at the absurdity of it. I picked up the phone, typed a reply, then deleted it, over and over. Finally, I whispered aloud what I couldn't send. I would have loved to see you in your dress, sweetheart. The tears came quietly, like an old friend returning home. Not loud, not dramatic, just steady, unstoppable. In that moment, I realized she hadn't just gotten married. She had built a new life, one that didn't need me in it. And I was left standing in the ruins of a love that had no place to go. The hours after that message passed like a blur. I remember sitting on the couch, still holding my phone as if warmth might return through it, as if the words on the screen might change if I just stared long enough. But they didn't. They stayed the same. We got married yesterday, Mom. Outside, the California sun kept shining, indifferent to my breaking. A bird sang on the windowsill, that small, sweet sound that used to make me smile. Now it just reminded me that life keeps going, even when your heart begs it to stop. For days, I moved like a ghost through my own house, did laundry I didn't need to do, cooked meals I didn't want to eat. Sometimes I'd catch myself setting 2 plates on the table, one for me, one for her, before remembering she wasn't coming. The silence became my companion, not the kind that comforts, the kind that listens. On the 3rd night, I sat by the ocean. The moon hung low, the waves folding in on themselves. I whispered, "Why, Hannah?" But the tide didn't answer. It never does. Then something shifted, not outside, inside me. A small, trembling thought surfaced through the ache. What if this isn't the end? What if this is the beginning of me without her? For so long, my identity was Hannah's mom. Every decision, every plan, every piece of who I was tied to her. But she was grown now. She had chosen her world, and I still had mine. I looked at the waves, the endless rhythm of them, and thought about how they always return, even after pulling away. Maybe love is like that. Maybe it has to retreat to find its way back. That night, I cleaned the kitchen, picked up the broken coffee cup from the floor, and poured myself a new one. It tasted bitter, but real. I sat by the same window where I had first read the message and whispered to the morning light, "You can't unlove your child, but you can stop begging to be seen." The realization wasn't loud or dramatic. It was gentle, like the ocean easing against the shore after a storm. I wasn't angry anymore, just awake. I took out my old sketchbook, the one I hadn't opened in years, and started to draw. Lines, shapes, waves, it didn't matter what. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't thinking about her. I was thinking about me. Tears still came, but they felt lighter, not like grief, but like release. That night, I fell asleep without checking my phone, and in the soft quiet before dawn, I realized something powerful. Losing her didn't mean losing myself. It meant finding the woman I'd been before motherhood and meeting her again, finally, with love. It took me 3 days to gather the courage to touch my phone again. Not because I didn't know what to say, but because I wanted to make sure the words came from strength, not sorrow. For 3 nights, I stared at that message. "We got married yesterday, Mom." 6 words that had changed everything. I'd written and deleted dozens of replies. How could you? You forgot me. I waited for you. But none of them felt right. None of them sounded like the mother I'd always tried to be. So I waited. And in that waiting, I found a strange peace. That morning, the light coming through my window was softer. The ocean breeze carried the scent of salt and jasmine, like the world was reminding me that beauty still existed, even after heartbreak. I made myself tea instead of coffee, sat at the table with my phone in front of me, and for the first time in days, I didn't cry when I looked at it. I opened her message again, let my eyes rest on it one last time, and started typing. Congratulations, sweetheart. I hope your heart never feels the emptiness mine does today. I truly wish you love, peace, and all the happiness this world can offer. I stared at the words. They weren't bitter. They weren't sharp. They were just true. I hesitated before hitting send, wondering if she'd even read it. But it didn't matter anymore. This message wasn't for her. It was for me. When I pressed send, I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel pride. I felt release, like exhaling a breath I'd been holding for years. I set my phone down and walked outside. The sky was a soft watercolor of orange and pink, waves folding gently onto the sand below. The world looked untouched, calm, whole. And for the first time, I realized I could be too. I didn't expect a reply, and none came. But that silence no longer stung. It was different now, not rejection, just distance. And distance, I was learning, didn't always have to mean loss. That night, I stood on the porch and whispered into the dark, "You'll always be my daughter, Hannah, but I need to be my own person again." The stars shimmered faintly above, and the ocean answered in soft rhythm, a sound of endings and beginnings. I went inside, poured a glass of water, and smiled at my reflection in the kitchen window. The woman looking back at me wasn't broken anymore. She was tired, yes, but steady, like someone who had finally made peace with her pain. Sometimes the most powerful thing a mother can say is nothing more. Just one message, one quiet goodbye, and then she lets go. With love. The day I left California, the sky looked like it was holding its breath. Gray, gentle, waiting. I stood in my living room surrounded by boxes, each one filled with pieces of a life that no longer fit me. There was Hannah's childhood art, the seashell she gave me when she was 5, my wedding veil folded inside a faded box. I didn't throw them away, I just couldn't. But I packed them quietly, as if closing the last chapters of a book I had memorized by heart. The move to Charleston, South Carolina wasn't planned. It just happened, like a whisper that said, "You've done enough waiting. Go live now." The first thing I noticed when I arrived was the air, sweet, heavy with magnolia and sea salt. The ocean here sounded different from California's. Calmer, almost forgiving. I rented a small cottage near the water, painted pale blue, with an old wooden porch that creaked like it had stories of its own. For the first few weeks, I didn't talk much. I'd sit on that porch every morning with tea in my hand, watching sunlight scatter across the waves, listening to the rhythm of the tide. It became my therapy, that gentle repetition, those endless comebacks. One morning, I found an old sketchbook buried among my things. Its pages were yellowed, corners curled, my old drawings still faintly visible. Flowers, faces, dreams I once had. something inside me stirred. That afternoon, I bought new pencils, new paint, and began again. The first line I drew was shaky. The second, a little steadier. By the third, I was crying. Not from sadness, but from remembering who I used to be before life revolved around someone else. Painting became my voice. My brush carried words I never said, memories I never healed. Every stroke felt like stitching myself back together. Neighbors began to stop by. "Your art looks alive," one woman said. I smiled for the first time in months. Days turned into weeks, weeks into calm. I started walking to the market every Sunday, learning faces, learning laughter again. No one there knew me as Hannah's mother. They just knew me as Margaret, the woman who painted sunsets. And that felt freeing. Sometimes, at dusk, I'd stand by the shore and imagine Hannah, maybe somewhere miles away, laughing, living her life. I didn't feel anger anymore, only a quiet wish that she was happy. Because healing isn't about forgetting, it's about remembering without the ache. As the tide came in one evening, soft and gold in the fading light, I whispered, "You'll always be part of me, Hannah, but so am I." And for the first time in years, I felt whole. It happened on a Sunday morning, the kind of quiet, golden morning that felt almost sacred. The sea breeze carried the smell of salt and jasmine through my open window, and the world outside was gentle, soft. I was standing by my easel, painting the horizon in strokes of amber and blue, when my phone buzzed on the table behind me. At first, I ignored it. These days, my peace was precious. I didn't let just anyone interrupt it. But then, something told me to look. Hannah. Yellow heart. For a moment, my heart stopped. Her name felt like a ghost I'd finally learned to live without, suddenly knocking on my door again. My hands trembled as I reached for the phone. I hesitated before answering. What could she possibly want after all this time? A part of me didn't want to know, but another part, the mother in me, couldn't turn away. I pressed accept. "Hello?" Her voice was small, cracked, nothing like the confident woman who once walked out of my life. "Mom, it's me." My breath caught. The sound of her calling me Mom again was enough to make my knees weak. I didn't speak. I let her fill the silence. Her sobs came first, then the words tumbled out, broken and trembling. "Mom, I'm sorry. I didn't know who else to call. Ethan left. His mother, she told him to. She said I wasn't good enough. And now I have no one." I closed my eyes. For a moment, I wasn't in Charleston anymore. I was back in my California kitchen holding her after her first heartbreak, whispering, "You'll be okay." But time changes things. Even love learns to pause before it runs. "I see," I whispered softly. "Where are you?" "In Seattle. I didn't know who else to talk to." My throat tightened, but my voice stayed steady. "Hannah? You always had me." Silence. Then another sob. "Mom, I thought I was doing the right thing. I wanted to prove I could make my own family, that I didn't need to depend on anyone. But I was wrong. I lost you. I lost everything." Tears blurred my vision, but they didn't fall. I had cried enough for both of us once before. "Hannah, I said gently. Sometimes life teaches us by taking away what we take for granted. Her breath hitched on the other end. I just want to come home, Mom. Please. I didn't say yes. I didn't say no. I just whispered, home will always be where love waits, Hannah. But love needs time to remember how to trust again. The call ended quietly. I stood there, phone still in my hand, staring at the sea. The waves rolled in, steady, forgiving, endless. And for the first time, I understood. Forgiveness doesn't always rush. Sometimes it arrives softly, like the tide. The call ended, but her voice stayed with me, trembling, lost, filled with the kind of pain only regret can bring. For a long while, I just stood there, watching the soft ripples of the ocean outside my window. The tide was coming in again, patient and unhurried, reclaiming the shore inch by inch. And that's when it struck me. Forgiveness moves the same way, slow, gentle, persistent. That night, the sky over Charleston turned the color of melted gold. I sat on the porch wrapped in my shawl, holding a cup of tea between my hands. The world was quiet, no shouting, no tears, just the hush that comes after a storm has passed. I thought of Hannah, the little girl who once ran barefoot across the beach, hair flying, shouting, "Mom, look at me." I thought of the woman she'd become, proud, stubborn, still learning that love isn't about distance or dependence. It's about presence, about choosing each other, even when it's not easy. A part of me wanted to run to her, hold her, tell her everything was forgiven. But another part, the part that had walked through silence, through heartbreak, through rediscovery, whispered, "Not yet." Because forgiveness isn't forgetting, it's remembering, without reopening the wound. I took out my sketchbook, the one filled with my new life, my healing. I turned to a fresh page and began to draw two figures, a mother and daughter standing at opposite ends of a beach. The tide between them shimmered, carrying reflections of light. And as I shaded the horizon, I realized something profound. Love doesn't always mean staying close. Sometimes it's standing far enough apart to let each other grow. My phone buzzed again, a message from Hannah. "It understand, Mom. Take your time. I'll wait." A single tear slid down my cheek, but it wasn't sadness this time. It was peace. I typed back, "I love you, Hannah. Always have, always will. And when the time is right, the door will be open." No dramatic ending, no perfect reunion. Just two hearts learning how to meet again, slowly, honestly, tenderly. The sun sank lower, painting the sea in copper and rose. I closed my eyes and breathed in the salt air. For the first time, my heart didn't ache. It simply existed, calm, steady, alive. Sometimes love isn't a grand gesture or a last-minute apology. Sometimes it's silence. Sometimes it's a quiet, "I forgive you," whispered into the wind. And sometimes it's the strength to let go, knowing that if it's real, it will find its way back. As the waves reached the shore and pulled away again, I whispered to the horizon, "I'm not broken anymore. I'm just free." And the ocean, eternal and endless, seemed to whisper back, "You always were."